Good morning. Get ready. Give me a second. Ah, okay. Give it a few minutes for the guys to make their way in before I start talking. It won't be a long stream because I have to go out soon for lunch. So probably gonna do 45 minutes an hour, like how the normal streams. Just kind of go over um, some of the stuff I've been working on and talk about some of the I guess stuff I learned the last few days. Uh, I know John is on his way um, to the airport, so I won't make it too long. Let's just see who else is gonna kind of make their way in. It's about 6 o'clock over in Germany, I think, right? So 6:15 or so. I think 6 hours behind. Oh, we're 6 hours behind you guys. All right, let's get started. So I think last time I was showing. Let's make this maximize this and gotta bring up the older ones. So I think last time I was showing on Thursday night stream I was showing this one. Um, let's close this so I can make this a little bit bigger. So basically, the give you the context. This is the XY, the old version of the XY carriage that I was working on for the Haribo Cube. Um, Basically, is top and bottom half splits to allow us to insert these two um, pillar blocks, um, and also have holes for mounting this one. It looks and works great from the standpoint that these inner pillow, these little balls allow slight misalignment of the rods as it goes through the block. Um, the problem was the size. The size of the block made it so that it was too big. I mean, like there was an issue with the thinking if I have the old ones to show. Um, yeah, I don't have it anymore. But basically, what was happening was in the this is the new one. I can show you that the new one um, passes over each other um, pretty easily. The old one was about twice as tall as the new one, and it was causing an interference issue when the two are crossing each other. So, and also made the rod spacing a little taller than usual. So, um, I wasn't able to use this carriage, even though I like it a lot because the strength wise, um, using 4 bolts through the block made it really sturdy, but just can't use it because it's too big. So I had to go back and basically redo the whole design. Went back to the drawing board and redid the whole design basically to um, to make this smaller. Um, what I could do is actually show you how the size difference. So I could actually add it to the model and you see the size difference between the two. So yeah, you can see it's quite a bit. Let me hide this rod here. Just hide this one. You see that the this is um, the first version of the XY carriage that I was working on, and this one is the new version. You can see that the footprint is a lot smaller, height wise, and the footprint is smaller. So there's less to print, and also allows the this, the x-axis to pass over the y without having too much issue with the clearance. So you can tell that like there's a lot of we saved a lot of space by going with the new design. So um, took a little while to get everything correct because with the smaller size, it's like smaller footprint. I was not able to use 4 bolts. I had to kind of improvise with 2. And with the 2 bolts, the problem is that you can no longer have the asymmetric design, so that you can't put nuts on one side and the countersunk on the other. Uh, I'll show you what I did to actually get around that problem. Um, and one advantage of that, like I said, is a smaller print to do and a smaller weight to move around. Also, I went with M4 instead of M5 bolts here, so it overall is I felt that it was a better design. So we can kind of try and jump in and look at the part itself. So let's go through that. Let's close this one. So this is uh, the half of the new design that I did today. Um, it has captured grooves for the drop-in bushings. These two are 10 millimeter bushings, and this one is a 8 millimeter for the cross rod. Um, the two through holes for the mounting and is M4. So basically, the um, the hardware is going to be standardized on M4 if I could, so that we don't have to get a whole bunch of different sizes. Um, we kind of rotate this to the bottom and show you what I did to solve the problem of the countersink. So you can see that basically I made a dual purpose hole here. One is it is already countersunk for a M4 socket head bolt. Also, it serves as the nut trap. So if you use one side as the socket head counterbore and one side as the hex nut trap, you can actually do exactly what we did before, which is have the nuts on the opposite sides and still be able to capture them and still use the counterbore. Still use the counterbore bolts so that the head is sunken from to the bottom. One thing I haven't done yet is I haven't modeled the belt mounts yet, but the belt mount is going to be between these two. Sorry, this way between these two across the face here. I'll work on that later on today. I guess I was just trying to rush through to get the stream going, so didn't get the model there yet. Um, the other thing I'm contemplating is whether or not I want to um, have um, alignment guides, so that basically like little squares that will align these two blocks together for added strength. I don't think I need to, because the bushings themselves act like alignment blocks, and then the two bolts should be sufficient. So I guess I'll get the parts printed and get the physical bushings and try it out before make that decision whether I need to make blocks and holes for the blocks. One thing that I sort of looked at this and how we would print it. Um, you probably end up with this face being on the build plate, and this is still pretty good. I don't think you need support when you print it vertically. So what I mean by that is, if we went and how would I do this here? Yeah. So imagine that this is the side down. Um, there was a way to turn this one here. Anyway, I'll figure it out later. Have that side down, it should be able to print both of them and not have to use support for these two holes here. So I'll try to print this today and see how it comes out. The two halves together basically forms this piece here, and I'll remove the top so you guys will see it. Top, there you go. So you can see that these bushings sit in those traps that I made previously in the other model, and the top half will capture them together so that the black part is captured in the grooves. The flesh color or the brown parts is going to be allow it to pivot inside that mount. Together, when you bolt it together with the two bolts, basically this becomes one continuous block of bushings. The M8 get a call on the screen. The M8 here is going to get backstopped. The rod will go through and get backstopped by to this wall. So I have to figure out a way to see to measure from here to the other end of the other carriage to make sure that this rod doesn't slide back and forth. Right now, the tolerance is pretty good. It's about half a millimeter from here to the edge. So if there's any movement on the rod itself, it's only half a millimeter. It's negligible. You're not going to see them in the print. So that's the new version of the XY block or carriage that is going to be used. And I sort of mocked it up here so that you can see what it's going to look like. From the side, you can see that it will clear, it'll clear pretty well. I think there's about 3 millimeters clearance between here. And this is basically the corner precision. So if I put the other rod back, there you go. Basically, the spider is gonna go between these two rods. I'm gonna have to model. I have to model the spider still, but basically between those two blocks, it's gonna have another block that is being moved by these two carriages. There's gonna be the corresponding opposite sides. It's also gonna have carriages that's gonna be connected by belts. So that's pretty much the updated carriage design. These I kept the 10 mil rod holders as pillow blocks. and they'll get mounted to the extrusion with T5 nuts, T nuts, sorry, M5 T nuts, and they're gonna have alignment alignment blocks to make sure that it gets aligned within this slotted hole here. Because that was one of the things that we talked about in the last stream, was that this slotted here. Let me show you that one that highlighted there. That slotted hole is going to give us an issue because it allows about a 3 mil movement between left and right. So what I wanted to do is actually eliminate that movement by having a alignment block that comes up and have a hole that's centered on that slot, so that we don't have any play in the rod holder here, and also provide a backing for the backstop for the 10 mil rod, because right now the way it sits allows the 10 mil rod to slide back and forth. So we also need a backstop there. I think the making pretty good progress on the design right now. These are quite a bit bigger than the stock Ultimaker ones, because we're using 8 mil rods here and 10 mil rod on the outside. So it has quite a bit of bulk to this, and I wanted to make sure that it's strong enough for the weight of these two rods. So that's why, like, there's quite a bit of meat here and here to kind of hold the bushings in place, so that we don't have any issues with that. The middle here is sort of beefy as well, so that these two bolt holes don't get too much flex, because the area here and the area here is going to get a lot of flex, a lot of pressure when we start to use it to clamp down the bushing. So I want to make sure that there's enough contact area here for the two sides to clamp nicely. But overall, I mean, it's a simple part, simple print, but it just took a long time to get the spacing right. Mainly because I had to make sure that these bushing traps, are in the correct diameter. That I left enough clearance around the opening here, so that this ball is able to pivot a little bit and not catch too much. So I might still tighten up this one. So basically make this hole a little bit smaller. It won't take, it's just a parameter, so I just gotta change that. So let's see. Oh, and the distance between these two bushings is important, because that makes it align on the rod. I could have made these two bushings. So let me show you this one with the cover off of it. So I could have made these two bushings a little bit closer together, but then you sort of lose the alignability of the rod. Right now, there's enough spacing here so that when the rod goes through it, it aligns this block perpendicular to the rod. So overall, I'm happy with this design. I think I want to stick with this and move on to the next part, which is the spider. Once I get the spider, this might change a little, but I don't expect it to change too much. So like I said, I'll probably end up putting the belt holder here and here, so that we have some adjustability in the middle. Yeah, overall, like, I'm happy with the part. It took about 3 days, and I think this is like version 13. So I had went back quite a bit to change it up. So yeah, this part, but probably, like I said, this movement is probably going to be um, kept. I'm gonna keep this until until I run into problems. But right now, it looks pretty good, so I don't anticipate any issues going forward with this. Um, with minor changes, if anything. I think the change is going to be if anything that needs to get changed is going to be the spacing between this and this bushing holder. Um, right now, that is basically 30 from here to here is about 30 millimeter, because the end of this extrusion and the beginning of this one is at the same spot. So 15 to here and then 15 to here. So the spacing between the two 10 mil rods is about 30 millimeters. I might tighten that up a little just so that these two blocks are closer, which translates that these two rods being a little closer for the spider. Not sure yet. I haven't had the time to look at the spider design yet. Maybe once the spider design will dictate that any changes to these two blocks. But like I said, overall, I think this is good enough for now. I'm gonna stick with that. Um, so let's go and have a look. So we are gonna stick with the FOM for the 10 mil rod on the outside, but we are going with these press fit KGLMs for the inside where we captured it. So I think the cost for the 10 mil ones are reasonable at $4 for one piece. Probably end up getting, you probably need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably looking at probably 10, like at least a 10 piece order. So $37 for the 10 pieces. That you need 8, but you probably just get 10 just to get the price break. And then the 8 mil is slightly less. I think it's 310. So that one you only need 1, 2, 3, 4. So far you only need 4. You probably need a few more for the spider, because the spider would need another 4. So you need 8 pieces again for the total between the X carriages and the spider. So probably end up with the 10 piece again. So that's $31, 37. So $68 for the bushing for the XY. It's a little bit more money than, like, let's say, going with the linear bearings. So one thing is, let me go back to the Fusion for a second. One thing is with these, you could, in theory, let me maximize this. You could, in theory, redo this block, keeping the same outside dimensions, and stick and go with. Let's see if I have other parts. Generic part. You probably could end up going with like the. Let's insert this for a second. Like you could, in theory, modify the inside of this box to use a LM8 LM10 UU, and basically rework the traps so that it traps the bearing in here. And you could probably go with a cheaper option with the LM10 UU. I probably not gonna do that, mainly because you're now going back to a single bearing, and it won't glide. I felt it won't glide as well as two pivoting ones. So, but it is a more economical option. I mean, these things you can get from AliExpress for like $2-3 a piece versus what we were saying, $8. So it's about a quarter of the cost to go with one of these per carriage. So overall, you're saving like 75% on the bushings, but performance won't be as good. And the other thing is you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to somehow shoehorn. Let's see, one of these guys. So you're gonna somehow make this work, like stick a LM8 you in there and probably have it sticking out like that. That'll work as well, but again, you have the same issue is you you don't have the pivoting action, and the this it doesn't move side, it doesn't move this way, but I wanted to use it so that it gives it a pivotability on the rod itself. So either you put LM8UU in there, or you make this whole block solid and make this whole 8mm and just cap it. And basically have the top and bottom half clamp down on the 8mm rod. It'll probably work, but the problem now is that you lose the adjustability of that rod. If there's slightly out of alignment, you're gonna get binding issues. So this is gonna be a lot harder if you use a clamp here versus a bushing. It won't allow you to uh, take out the variation on the rod spacing. So probably not a good idea. So, but um, for price conscious people, I guess then they can actually go with that. But I think um, we're pretty good not going that way. So let's save that. I don't have to deal with this. I mean, right now you're looking at like 370, 370, 310, so 9, 1040. So basically per carriage you're looking at like about $10 for these three pieces here. It's about $10, $9 to $10 depending on how many we buy per carriage times 4. So $40 odd for the carriages. So I think it's reasonable. Let's just kind of go with that until we run into problems, like I said. So let's say that. So I've been having a lot of challenges trying to animate this because basically I'm trying to get get it so that this carriage is cylindrical joined to this rod so that I can slide back and forth holding this rod in place. I successfully get this to work sliding along here, but it just didn't want to pick up this rod even if I made it a rigid group to this box. So gonna have to try to do that again tonight, when I'm not being rushed to get that to work. Because what I need to do is I need to get that movement to work, frame out the rest of this box, and when I add the spider to these two rods, if I move the spider, it should move these two blocks. Come on, let's go. It should move these two blocks in the animation, so it shows you how the movement works without us building it. So hopefully, I'll spend some more time on the animation, see if I can get it animated to show how it works. Hey, Steve. I think that's all I got to show today, actually, for the stream. So let me just kind of minimize this and then go back to here. I'm gonna get some samples of this and see if so on the spider, are you still looking at designing so you can quickly change front ends so you could go from different extruders maybe in the laser head? So probably what I think is gonna happen is it's gonna be modular. So maybe that's a good response to that question. What I plan to do is basically create the spider so that there's a mounting system, and then probably some kind of dovetail design so that you would end up sliding the whatever attachment you want onto the spider, and then having a set of cross bolts that will go into through the two ports at the dovetail, and then mate with a nut on the other side so that it would hold the part in the dovetail. And it's not quick release per se. You still need two bolts to go through both parts, but it's going to be a lot faster than you trying to disassemble a one like and pick up the spider. So in theory, um, if you keep all the connections and stuff like that as on the slide-in module, you should be able to just kind of take out the two bolts, slide off the old module, and slide on the new one. So it is it's something I'll keep in mind when I'm designing it, that it's going to be modular. Um, Mainly because I don't know sure about the laser, because that's something I don't have access to, but the something similar to like the QCE, probably where you swap it for different hot ends, or if you're in production setting where you got a clog, instead of trying to deal with it at that point, is you slide out the whole assembly and then you slide it in your backup, and then you go back to printing without messing with the extruder on the machine itself. Um, Having said that, one of the decisions before was to go with a probably end up going with a Bolden extruder to keep the weight down on the spider. So what that means is pretty much that um, there won't be a motor, or there won't be a lot of electronic stuff on the spider itself for the module. It's going to be just the hot end heater and the thermistor, and then the rest of the mechanism is like the motor and the extruder is going to be mounted on the frame. So um, we could go. There's a couple of different ways we could go around with that. Is um, we could have it so that you disconnect the extruder motor and you pop the Bolden tube off and you swap the whole module, or you would actually have multiple motors mounted or extruder mounted on the frame, and then depending on which one you plug into the Rambo or whatever, or the not the Rambo, the smoothie board, um, that's the one that gets run, and then that's the bolt that you use. So there's a couple of different ways you do it. Not sure yet. I mean, I think some of the guys are asking for dual extrusion as well. So that module has to have enough space to for all that other options that you guys want to go with, like uh, dual extrusion, or like and also I have to oh, so the other thing I have to make sure too is that there's room for for the proximity sensor, right? So that is going to be part of the hot end module, or it's going to be part of the spider. I'm leaning towards it being part of the spider, because then you don't need to replace that every time you change the hot end. So let me just kind of read the rest of this here. I don't know if you already designed a extruder with the part going also on the hot end. Well, so let me kind of clarify a bit on the MK2 um, parts cooling fan, right? Most of the time, the parts cooling fan works well on MK2. Um, it doesn't wrap around, that's true, but most of the prints you could probably orient it so that it doesn't have too many issues with the cooling. Um, Wraparound fans are hard because the if you have one fan in the middle, um, by the time the air gets round to the back end, you lose a lot of static pressure. So the back end cooling will never be as good as the front end cooling. You get around that by having all sorts of design decisions in the ducting itself, so that you may have it tapered as it goes around to the back, to compensate for the loss of pressure. That's what the HVAC guys, like the home heating guys, do, right? They started with a big trunk for the air, and then as they get further away from the fan, they start to shrink the diameter of the pipe so that it keeps the velocity or the pressure the same, despite the loss, right? You gotta have to do the same thing with the wraparound fan. The Ultimaker's kind of solution is to use two fans, um, one on each side or front and back, depending on how you look at the printer. That's something that is probably going to be a little bit um, easier, is to use two fans and then have them blow on both ends into a circular pattern so that the pressure loss is circular and each side kind of takes care of half the cooling, and then you don't have the pressure drop problem. I'll make a note of that question because it's one of those things that we don't need to answer right now. I mean, is we are still pretty preliminary in the design phase, so the that's gonna be part of maybe like once we pass the halfway mark where we have a moving printer, like meaning that the gantry and the spider moves and the bed moves, and we have all the clearance issues all sorted out, and then we're able to sort of have the first movement test. I think after that we could then look at how much space we have to work with and go with the solution that will give the optimal cooling. Um, Too much cooling is actually a bad thing as well, right? Because what you don't want is you don't want the pot to cool too quickly. It's sort of odd. I don't even think it's really a science. It's kind of like voodoo. Is that do you, depending on there's a lot of variables too, right? I mean, if um, we don't have the luxury of standardizing on one fan, so like different fans have different pressure ratings and different RPM ratings. So um, we sort of have to work within some generic parameters to see um, whether that the fan will work for everybody, and or the fan design will work for everybody with different fan designs, so fan ratings and fan design. So um, what I so hmm, let me give you some thought there. I guess what I'm thinking, and I'm hoping this works out, is um, it would be kind of like the Haribo 3030, right? Where the majority of the work is done, and we get into alpha or beta, and then people start to look at the design and start to sort of contribute to it, um, like the extruded design and the dual extrusion, the hot end and laser and all that other stuff. Is that's sort of the tail end of it. I'm hoping that by that time there'll be a few of them out in the wild. People will start to play around with them, and then they can contribute back into into the design itself. I know that last time I talked about keeping it so close source and um, not GPL, but um, ultimately sometime down the road I'm gonna have to release it, right? Because I mean I can't keep it forever, so um, I have to find a way to do it without letting people steal the design. So basically that's gonna be pretty tough. Like that whole situation with people just kind of taking designs. I think that is not really cool, and I don't know how to deal with it right now. Um, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess. So I think I'm gonna go and kind of. Oh yeah, that too is gonna be some. Uh, that we appreciate it, John. If you have some kind of quick disconnect setting set up for the Delta, that'd be great because I think that's one of the weaknesses of having a direct wire printer is you don't have the modular removability. and having one plug seems to work fine. The other, what I've been looking at different printers, and the other day I went to Digimakers and I look at the one of the large format printers. They were using DB25 for the connection between the control box and the printer itself, and I think that works in a way for like low voltage connection. So and it's cheap, relatively cheap. If you think about DB25 or DB9s, those are relatively cheap. So we probably could go with something like that, or ribbon cables. The the high voltage stuff like the hot end heater and the bed is still going to be kind of um, like kind of the going to be a little tougher. Probably going to go with XT30s or and those are easy to get as well because those are hobby grade stuff. So we could get those. And again, like I said, is we sort of having a big wish list of stuff that we kind of have to look at, but those are issues that we don't have to address right now. Like we just have to kind of keep it in mind and keep our options open and keep talking about it as we go forward. But yeah, I mean, I think I think is making good progress. I guess that's what I'm going to say. It's making good progress, and I think um, in a week, probably middle of next week or late next week, is gonna I'm gonna have I'm hopefully get the animation of that whole movement working, and that should give me a 70-80% confidence that the design of the white carriage and the spider is gonna work well. Um, if I could verify the design up to a 70-80% confidence factor, then I will go ahead and order the bushings the extrusions um, and start to build the top of the top movement part, so to kind of sort out any bugs, because like for clearance issues or for variations in the bushing size and stuff like that, we could work out those bugs now, and then um, have those sort of be fixed and not have to deal with them later. Um, and also, I think I mentioned the last stream on Thursday was if I once I figured out that overall dimension of the frame, the outside frame, that could be again standardized so that um, the guys could stop buying those frame parts and put it together and use it as an enclosure for the existing Haribo. Um, like because of the none of the parts is going to be mounted outside of this enclosure. Everything's going to be inside except the motors. I got to find a way to mount the motors on the outside and run the belt to the inside. But other than that, um, all the panels is going to be able to slide in like on the extrusions on the verticals, and then the ceiling is going to be a little higher than the movement part itself. I think I last stream I said the movement and the ceiling is about 100. Gives me about 75 to 100 millimeters spacing for to allow the filament and the molding to move. So um, once I sort of model it and show the animation and show the movement of the spider, and I finalize on the drill holes for the verticals, we could also buy those and build the whole enclosure right now, and then have kind of spin that off as a work in progress, so that you could buy the panels and the rubber seals. Because I think I showed on last Tuesday on the second stream is there's these rubber moldings. So the rubber molding goes onto the if I could show it on Fusion here. So like I mentioned, is that this groove here and this groove here, I purposely make sure that I don't use it. And what's going to happen is that you're going to have this, like you have a panel that takes up, let's say, half the space. That's going to block off, basically become the wall of the enclosure. And then a rubber a rubber seal goes here and here that pushes that wall against the extrusion so that it seals it. So most of the other solutions basically somehow um, use a T-nut and attach the wall to the outside of this face, and then basically you have to drill through your plexi or whatever material you want to use, and then bolt it to a T-nut. One, it's messy having to drill those holes or use clips. The other solution was have clips that go into this channel, and then basically you run the wall up to that clip, and then the clip will hold it in place. All those seems to be a little bit more like a less elegant solution to getting the wall uh, into um, into place. This way is you cut a piece of board, don't have to be exact because you just have to clear the groove, and the rubber seal pushes against that, so it seals it up, and you have a, I'm not gonna say airtight, you have a slightly better mounting solution, and you don't need to buy any screws or anything like that. You just have to buy some rubber seals. So I think that works better, and that's the one we're gonna go with. Um, so down here, you would have a um, a piece of plexi that takes up the blue space here, and then the outside groove will be for the rubber seal. I think once I get an example, once I actually get a corner cut and show you guys how it works, it's gonna be pretty good. I think you guys will like it because it took a little while to look for it on Musubi to see how it works out, but it is a good solution for that. Let's take the next 10-15 minutes. If you guys have any questions, or like generally not just about the Haribo Cube, I know like we've been talking about that for the last few streams, but if there's any questions or suggestions or advice or anything like that, let's leave it open for next 10-15 minutes. Okay, let's see what SkyDriver said.
Den ersten Teil jetzt nicht gesehen haben, also der komplette Drucker hat jetzt hier überall Linearführungen bekommen. Im ersten Teil habt ihr ja gesehen, wie ihr auch diese duale Z-Achse einbauen könnt, die neue Halterung für den Extruder einbauen könnt. Und heute möchte ich euch zeigen, wie ihr letzten Endes dann die X-Achse fertig macht.
Yeah, so basically that's the idea I want to go with as well. Is basically having this is DB25. I think it's DB25. It should be DB25 breakout on the wires. That's a pretty good idea. Except the only thing I don't quite understand is I guess the use of cable change is kind of weird. Because if you're able to use DB25 here, I would have just used a regular DB25 cable and not have to deal with this cable chain. But you know, that's just me, right? It's pretty beefy, but he also loses a lot of. I think this is a standard. I guess. Get a better focus here. Thanks, Donald. This is a standard, I guess, rail system, and I was mad on the chat was suggesting I look into using this for the movement. You can actually see he also uses it for the vertical as well. Two concerns, I guess, with using the IGUS. One is it's relatively more expensive than getting just straight rods. Um, the the track itself is 8 millimeter, and it kind of jumps to 12 or 14. Some I think no, sorry, it goes from 8 to 16, I think. So like there's no 10 or 12 millimeter sizing for it doesn't like there's no 10 and 12 millimeter sizing for this track. It's the 8 and 16. So it's really kind of weird how it just jumps. Um, the Then also you can see it here is that the actual carriage itself uses 4 bushing blocks, and then the carriage is this big piece, this big metal piece that he's mounting to. You sort of lose a lot of space because if you think about it, if you go from like if assuming that this is where the hot end is in the middle, you go to the end here. This is the dead space. Like you go print up to here, and then the rest of this carriage is going to hit the edge. Same with this side, the rest of this carriage. So even though he might look like he has 300 across here, he's limited to 200 actual print volume. Um, that was the concern. I mean, what we could do is actually go in and print a or get a special milled a new sled. Like I'll call it a sled. I don't know if that's a better word. The sled that connects the 4 bushing holders together. But then like to make it thin, like to make it closer together. But then it begs the question is like what would I gain from using the rails at this point because I'm not using the whole package. So again, the same with the Z, right? The going down is not too bad because we know that there's going to be space underneath the bed where the bottom of this lead is going to be able to clear. But at the top, you kind of lose Z height, right? Because you're gonna have more Z to compensate for the fact that you have this extra bit floating on top as well. And last thing, okay, so there's 3 concerns. Last concern is um, I know that I've been going through and using IGES for the bushings for the sort of reference design. Um, but I did talk about having a more economical alternative if somebody wants to um, remodel those XY blocks. But with this, I really don't have an alternative. I mean, IGES makes it. I know you could get the same sort of knockoff on the AliExpress, but then like it still won't be cheaper, and I'm not like the sourcing is going to be a problem. Sourcing it is going to be a problem. So um, and you also need something to mount this track onto. So you can see he has extrusions in the back. So you need to mount these extrusions. So you there's a lot of more complexity to this design, and for really minimal, I feel minimal gains from this. I mean, this is it it is overbuilt for
Kleine
what
Werkzeugwechsler
this
hier
printer
bauen
can
können,
do, right?
der mithilfe eines
Um,
USB-Steckers funktioniert. Das heißt, ihr könnt ganz schnell,
that's
ich
not
sage jetzt mal so
25. What's the
von einer
next size?
halben
It goes
Minute
down like
gleich
maybe
ein Werkzeug
16 or
wechseln.
something. Like,
Mit dem haben wir jetzt einen Initiator, der das Druckbett abtastet. Was auch noch ganz cool ist und was ich schon für das
see, I don't
Fräsen
understand. See, same thing here, right? Um, it must be a pet peeve of mine. Um, like, why are you using like three 90-degree brackets when you could easily do a through hole design? And I can see the brackets back here in the on the lower one too. So um, that looks like a 15 then if it's a if uh, and that's all we really need is I think a 15 and maybe a 25 if we wanted to have extra um, connections. I don't I guess there's been a lot of talk about like using a laser on for like I guess low grade like engraving or burning wood and stuff like that. I guess for me is I don't really see me doing that. So um, it's it's weird. I guess for me, that's like a better word. I guess you just look at it and say it's kind of weird that we want to do lasing on a home printer because it's relatively dangerous if you think about it. Like, if it's able to burn wood, like we already have a really dangerous hot end on it now. Putting a laser on there may not be such a good idea, right? So 6.5 dozen. I guess we kind of look at it from there and see where we go. But again, like I said, it's kind of weird that he goes through all the trouble and still use brackets for the like down here. You can still see brackets that connect the cross member here. Um, you can easily just went and spent a little bit more thought on where like we placed this whole jumbo mess um, with through bolts, like how we do with the Haribo. So hopefully it gets better later on. Yeah, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this connection, when you could easily just went with one printed part for the alignment and then one bolt through the extrusion. So I guess different people have different ideas, right? So looks like he used the same select system for the Y as well. Yeah, he did, and so this I want to talk about. You can see it's already sagging. So one of the one of the things that Joseph Pusa was talking to TiVo about was the fact they used this hanging motor design for one of the earlier printers with a coupler. The problem with this is if you if you think about how the coupler works, the coupler is basically a spring, and you have the weight of this gantry on the lead screw. The lead screw is held on by one bolt through the coupler into another bolt onto the stepper. All your weight is being held by the, these two bolts and this spring. This is basically a spring. I don't know if you guys ever know what the coupler looks like, but it's basically a spring. So this is going to stretch over time. Both sides are going to stretch at different rates. You're going to have all sorts of pain when you try to get this to work correctly. These days, it's not hard to get steppers that have integrated lead screws like we have that removes this coupler from play, and you mount it on the bottom because you let gravity um, deal with the backlash. Because basically, this is a bad design. I mean, overall, I think they could have done better here. Yeah, enough for that. We're not gonna watch the whole video here, right? Um, so I've been printing. Like, I'll show you guys what I've been doing lately. Is been printing um, this black PETG from Filament.ca, not sponsored, and they come and go pretty good. I mean, like I'm happy with it. The only thing is that they're really shiny. I mean, you could tell like they got this gloss to it. I'm hoping to see if I could pick up. I think it was a link on the chat about some matte finish PETG. So I'm gonna try to see if I can pick up a roll of that. And I still haven't had a chance to use the Fortura copper fill. So I'm gonna try to do that this week as well. But the spending the time on the design of the printer is taking up all of my free time. So um, printing out a set of dark gray eSun PTG for Les. I get a big gaping hole here on the PTG, so I can't do a full plate right now. Once Les is actually working on replacing my um, heat bed cables. So once I do that, I'll talk about that once he does the cable swap, and I'll talk about what we are doing to fix the issue with the heat bed cable. Heat bed cable right now is very stiff, and it doesn't it bends it doesn't bend easily, I should say. And what's happening is actually pulling on the Rambo connector, and I know they're gonna say it's our fault for the cable melting or the connector melting, but pulling it on it is not a good thing. So with the silicone wire, it's very flexible. So when the bed moves back and forth, it doesn't transfer that force to the connector. It allows the cable to flex. So that should be a lot better. So once I get that done, I'm gonna swap out the bed to replace the PEI on it, and then the other bed I'll show you is practically new, but had a stupid hole where the screw is. So what happened was I was removing a print, and because that screw hole wasn't supported, it lifted a little bit when I slide the knife through it. Um, this thing. When I slide this through it, it just put a hole in the mid, right in the middle of the bed. So I've been like 99% of that bed is still good. So I'm probably not gonna replace that one until it messes up more. I have to work around it. It's kind of bugging me a little on that one. Um, yeah, I'm not happy. I mean, the PI works great for adhesion, but the longevity of it is just stupid. Like I like right now, with me printing about 80% of the time, I'm going through PI like probably once a month or once every month and a half. Um, I just ordered two more from Prusa, and taxes and shipping everything included was I think $29 US for two of them shipped to my house. Still cheaper than buying it from the states, so I'm happy with that. But it's still like $29 is $29, right? So hopefully I'll get it next week, and I can replace this one once I get off the printer. I'm gonna try the other method, which is the heating it up and lifting it. See if it actually lift the 3M with it. Um, if it does, I'll be happy with it. I think that's it. I'm not gonna ramble on like in an hour and 3 minutes on the dot. So I think I'm gonna end it here. Next, I think next week. I'm gonna switch it up next week. I know I've been doing Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and it's taking a lot of time to do these because I had to sort of rush to prepare to show something. Um, GFKFR4 epoxy. If you can send me a link to that GFK FR4 epoxy, that'd be great. I could have a look at it later. Yeah, I was gonna try filler print, but it's weird. I couldn't figure out how to order it. So maybe I could try filler print too while I'm at it. Because I sent two boards out to Les to get the cables done, and then replace these two. I have two, and then I could try different things. The uh, the lock build suck. Don't get lock build that orange stuff. It just doesn't work. So I know I'm not going to bother with that. So it's either be PI filler print. But if you say that this GFK works, I'll try that too. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday is I think is a little too much for me to spend that much time on trying to get ready for stream, and then wasn't really getting a lot of um, the audience wasn't there anyway. Like I was getting 10 to 12 viewers, and I think the return wasn't very good on it. So what I'm gonna do is switch it up and do Wednesday and Saturday. So Wednesday would be the 6:30, 7 o'clock time frame Eastern time. Do an hour or so on Wednesday, and then Saturday we'll keep the noon to 1 o'clock or noon to 1:30 time frame for Saturday. That gives you 3 or 4 days in between each stream gives me time to work on the content, and I don't have to keep constantly trying to find content and not work on the model. I think we're still pretty good on in terms of timing for to be on track for um, alpha in June. I think we're still pretty good shape. So I'm happy with that. Um, once I get to that point where I could start doing alphas, I'll let some people know, and then they could start printing some of the parts for the alpha. I think the if I know there was some, there was some people who wanted to help with the design on some of the work on the design itself. I appreciate the offer. At this stage, I think I need the agility to kind of make decisions myself to sort of move the project forward. Once the once we get to stable mechanics, meaning like the it moves, and I can start branching off some of the work. I think the spots where I'm gonna need help in is gonna be electronic wise, basically meaning um, somebody has to kind of take SmoothieWare and come up with a good configuration for the mechanics to so that it moves. Figure out things like the number of steps and um, to get good precision, and the um, the heat bed um, the heat bed control. Probably going to end up using some kind of external MOSFET for the heat bed control. So we have to kind of figure out the electronics and mounting of that. So I think once we get to the point where the mechanics is stable, and then we can start branching off different topics, that's when I start to bring people in to help with the project. I think that works. But at the current stage, I think I need all the control on my end, and having people with different time zone also doesn't really help that much, because then to get everybody for decisions of that is going to be hard. So I appreciate the offers, and don't think that I'm not taking them up on it. I will um, once I get to a good stage where I could start bringing people in, I will. So don't worry. Thanks for the help. Thanks for the offer to help, and you know I appreciate it. So I think that's it. I won't linger, and I know I've said that twice already, but I won't linger. I'm gonna end the stream here. I'll catch you guys in the chat later.